Hello my friends, Mia DeBolt here, bringing you more transparency in trading. Thank you so much for joining me on my FTMO Challenge Repeat. This is the repeat number 2 and I'm on day 4 through 6. So if you haven't been following my journey to the 7-figure mark, make sure that you subscribe below so that you're watching all my trades and you know exactly when I get there. Alright my friends, Monday was a kind of sideways day. I sat through the charts all day long, took a very small trade towards the end of the day, did not see anything that I really wanted to trade and really want to stay in. So I took a very small trade, 0.01 lot trade, and I logged day 4 on Monday. Tuesday rolled around, and to be completely honest, I was looking forward to Tuesday because that's usually a day that has a lot of movement. There was a red folder news event and I was expecting some volatility, expecting the markets to move. Well, I sat there pretty much all day, watched the S&P kind of go sideways, go a little bit towards the bearish side, and then also the NASDAQ go up. So what did I do? I actually was in and out of the market, and unfortunately I didn't record it. So I do have a static chart to actually review so that you can see exactly which trade I took. Okay, so without further ado, let's go to the chart so that you can see which trade I took on Tuesday. Okay, so this is the NASDAQ, and we had the mean threshold of this bullish order block actually respected with these candles, and so that's kind of what I was watching. So it did react from the 5-minute bullish order block as well. So I watched that happen, and it built some of that fair value gap and then pushed up really aggressively. So that brought us to this price action here. And so this is the price action. I was really expecting the NASDAQ to go up to the weekly close of this candle, and so that's kind of what my target was. And so let's drop down to the 1 minute. Okay, so this is in the afternoon, and again I was looking for my terminus target up here in the weekly close, and so this is what I was seeing. So the minute that this candle broke structure, I was actually looking to buy. So I clicked on buy at that moment, and I also had this 1 minute volume imbalance set up here. So I know that it broke structure to the downside, but I figured that it had already taken enough of the sell side that it was ready to go for buy side. So this is how the trade actually panned out. I actually entered and it did start running away, which was nice. However, on the 15-minute, it did look like there is a bearish order block, and so I did get out closer to this area. So I closed at this area, and that was exactly where it did start turning around and accumulating, using that 1 minute volume imbalance as resistance, and then it did this. So the final hour macro touched that volume imbalance and then dropped dramatically. So I would have been knocked out of that trade. It was a 1% trade, and it did not go up to my terminus target or to that what now was the daily high. So I actually got out around here where it was actually stalling a little bit. So that's where I closed at 0.87 for the day. Okay, so I'm not going to show you my account because I did trade today as well, so I didn't want to mix those up together, but I will show you the results of that in my account, and I'll show that at the end of this video. Okay, so that brings us to the present day, which is day 6. So today is really my last day of trading for the week because I do have an event that I'm going to tomorrow. So I was only thinking about trading Monday through Wednesday, so I was a little disappointed that I had only logged 0.87% on Tuesday. However, I was still happy with the profits. My whole goal is to continue to build that profit cushion, even if it's little by little, especially in this type of market. So let's jump into day 6 and we can see exactly what happened today. So just a little setup, there's no significant news events today. I was not really expecting any significant moves in the market because typically the day before or no significant news events, we typically go sideways or it's a seek and destroyed kind of day. And so that's kind of what I was feeling like when I jumped on the charts today. All right, so when I did jump on the charts, we have this big liquidity up here. We have a big flag, and we also have daily equal lows down here. So I was kind of looking at that. I had already had this marked up as far as liquidity on the sell side. And because these trend lines are very subjective, you can actually move this out even, and I actually moved this down so that it touched those little wicks as well. All right, so this is what I was seeing. A lot of liquidity just sitting up here, and just the trend line going really nicely for those retail traders who like to have that trend line, and probably was making some money off of that. However, that's not what I trade. It's definitely where liquidity sits, and this is a target. All right, so we have open range gaps both above and below the market, and so those are also things that I like to look at and kind of see where price has moved overnight. So it does look like we've been bullish overnight, and so that's kind of what I was thinking. Even though we're in the seasonal tendency of bearishness and I was only looking to sell, the NASDAQ was moving up towards that volume imbalance. And I also believe with that trend line liquidity sitting above where price action is, that's also going to be targeted as well. Okay, so I actually took 2 trades today, and so this is my first trade. It was actually a sell because I was looking at the 5-minute fair value gap above the 50% of the range, as well as the new week open gap and the high of the daily fair value gap. So all of my confluences and confirmations were there for a sell. It was just a matter of price action showing me exactly where it wanted to go. Okay, so this is what I had set up, and I was risking 1% on this trade. Okay, so this is where I come back to my computer and I'm seeing that we're in the point of interest, and this is where I'm just watching price action and expecting it to start elongating down to the downside. So I have this 5-minute fair value gap, 50% of the range, and the 15-minute breaker. And so I'm working on being a lot more courageous with my trades, and so entering without thinking about it too much and just following my confirmations and trusting my analysis. Okay, so it does move away. It does make a 1-minute fair value gap to the upside, however, and so I am watching that. And I'm watching how price action is moving away. Is it moving away aggressively, or is it kind of anemic, or is it hovering around the 50% level? All right, so I really don't like the overlapping candles, and it does actually become a bullish candle. And so I'm just being patient here, just watching price action, and it does start to kind of move up. And so I don't like that price action is not respecting this bearish order block right here. And so because that's the case, I'm also looking at how it's respecting this 5-minute fair value gap. We also have an old 5-minute volume imbalance, and so that old 5-minute volume imbalance is actually acting as support. And so again, this is not something that I feel very comfortable with, so I'm trimming my risk and making sure that if I do get stopped out, it'll only be like 0.5%. Okay, so we're continuing to move to the upside. It does hang out a bit, and it is starting to respect the 50% of this new week open gap. However, it just kind of oscillates back and forth. I'm moving my stop kind of around, but always just below where I actually entered my stop loss in the first place. And so I'm just giving this a little bit more room. I do know that these 1-minute volume imbalances are our targets as well. So we're just a little bit too high in this expansion for me to really be happy with this trade, as well as there's a 5-minute fair value gap here. So that's also another indication. And I don't like that being something that we're accumulating instead of actually running away from this fair value gap and from this breaker. Okay, so I'm just going to fast forward this because it does keep moving sideways. I have multiple opportunities to get out at break even, and I just start trimming my risk. And so I'm looking for the bottom of this new week open gap to act as resistance. And so this is where I'm trimming my risk really aggressively. And eventually I just close this out because we don't elongate and create a 1-minute fair value gap to the downside. So I'm not really happy with this trade, and I do feel like I'm off sides. I just closed it out and I just broke even. So really happy with getting out because it was going bullish. Okay, so I sat on my hands for a little bit longer and just waited for more information. And so more information did tell me that we were going bullish and that we have targets above. Okay, this is where I saw the buy side was taken and we dipped down to a discount. We also had a 1-minute breaker here, and so we ran away from that 1-minute breaker. And so we're in this position where we could either go down or we could go up. And my decision was to really trust my analysis and to go for the buy side because we had already really explored the sell side multiple times. We'd gone down there really aggressively, and so I did feel like buy side was next. Okay, so let's play this, and I do have my consequent encroachment and the daily fair value gap, and I do have the gradients of the new week open gap, so I'm just watching this. I have this marked up, and this is the previous day's high that I have as my terminus target. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking is going to be the terminus. So we're laid a candle over that 1 minute volume imbalance. We do have a 1 minute volume imbalance down here. However, if we are bullish, I do want that to be a breakaway gap. And so I'm not expecting price to go all the way down there. Okay, so we are hanging out at the top of this new week open gap. And so we have new week open gaps up here as well. And so this is where I do think about entering. Okay, so I'm in this for 1%. However, if you notice here, I actually have 2 positions open. And so I'm not quite sure what happened. It's actually something that is still a mystery to me because I reviewed this video. I know that I only clicked the button once. And so it's not until a little while that I actually noticed that I have 2 positions open. So I only wanted to risk 1%, but I had 2% actually on. So I'm journaling, and we can see here that I do close out one of those positions in a little bit of profit. And so I don't want to open up my risk up too much. And so that's the reason that I closed that trade. Okay, so let's just fast forward this. This was a really fun trade to be in. It does start running away from my entry, so that is a really great sign that we are on the right side. However, it does start hanging out here because it does feel like a high resistance liquidity run. I am just monitoring what the price action is doing. Now, when I start showing the higher time frame and the 15-minute is actually showing that there's a 15-minute bullish order block here and a bullish breaker, then that's kind of where I really feel comfortable with my stop loss being right there. So I've already trimmed my risk. I'm probably 0.5%. We have this 1 hour volume imbalance that we laid a candle over once we closed the 1 hour candle. And so we are moving up nicely, and I'm feeling pretty confident that my terminus target is going to be hit. And so this is kind of where I'm just monitoring the trade, trimming my risk. My risk is now at the break-even point. And so I do play around with my stop loss quite a bit. And so this is where I have the trend line liquidity right here, and I have some alerts going so that when we do break that trend line liquidity, if we react very strongly from that, then I just might close the trade altogether. So those are the thoughts that I was having. And then we start to look at the DXY, and the DXY is moving down nicely. All 3 of the indices were moving up, so that was a very nice sign that we had symmetry in the market. And so I did feel like my stop loss was a little bit too aggressive there, and so I wanted to give that a little bit more room. Because we had closed above this open range gap and we had filled the entire open range gap, I did feel like we were still bullish. Okay, so we did come down to a discount, but we're respecting that 1 minute bullish order block. And this is where we start going sideways for about 23 minutes or so. And it might be more, but I was actually watching this 1 minute fair value gap. I'll have it actually marked out right here. And so that's where that 1 minute fair value gap is a really good indication that smart money was just accumulating orders there. And there was a 1 minute bullish breaker right here. And so it was just accumulating orders. There's a 15-minute consequent encroachment of the wick. And so I had that already set up as well. And we had this old high as far as buy side. So again, I'm just playing around with my stop loss, making sure that I don't get knocked out quickly before price actually runs. Because if this 1 minute fair value gap, if they want to sweep the lows here, then I would have been stopped out. So I wanted to give a little bit more room and just make sure that I stay in this trade, because even if they do hit my stop, it would have been a positive trade. Okay, so I actually say it has to close above this 1 minute fair value gap with big candles soon. So looking at the time, it's already in the lunch hour. So to expect it to be running in the lunch hour is pretty aggressive for me. However, I was expecting the macro to kick in, and so that's kind of what I was expecting. So I wasn't expecting too much more from the downside, and so I am being really aggressive with this, and it doesn't end up following my directions. So it does make a 1 minute fair value gap to the downside, which is not a good sign, but I did move my stop loss a little bit, so it has more room. Okay, so again, it's just playing around here. So already I sat through 36 minutes of accumulation, and now it's going to start running for buy side. I do want that 1 minute fair value gap to be a breakaway gap. However, this one is the breakaway gap. Okay, so once we break structure, I'm actually looking to take 25% off. So I know that I put 200, which is half of my position, but I actually changed that to 100. Okay, so we stall a little bit, but we close it out, and I have 0.45 for the day in realized profit. And so I'm ready for another 25%. Okay, so once the daily high is taken, then I'm thinking about another 25% off. Okay, so the DXY is moving down nicely. And once that daily high is taken, which is there, I close out another 25%. And so I have about 0.5% left. So I'm moving my terminus up higher because we had so much accumulation. I'm thinking that we're actually going to go a lot higher than just my original terminus. So again, I'm just being really aggressive with my stop loss. And had I done this for the entire way up, it would have been a really nice trade. And still, I'm really happy with this and how I'm actually managing this, because it does end up just continuing to go up and does not come down too much. So I have this new week open gap low that I'm expecting it not to go down below. And so that's kind of where I'm guesstimating where it is. So my stop is really over here. So it does come down, touches that low, and then starts going up again. And so let's fast forward. You can see that at the high here, I was going to take 25% off with the daily wick consequent encroachment, but I actually see that it's kind of stalling up here. So I'm thinking of taking another 25% off. And this one's a little bit more of a position. So now I only have 100 lots left. And so I'm just going to allow this to run. And this is my terminus target, is the daily high too. So I actually think that this is really bullish. So I moved my terminus target all the way to the daily high. That's the very last daily high in that trendline liquidity. However, I just wasn't patient enough. So I was already on the charts for quite a while, and I wasn't thinking that I was going to go this high and be a really bullish day. And so that's kind of where I was just watching this and watching price action, and I wasn't trying to be too greedy today. So I already banked 1.61%, and had I just left my stop there and been okay with my stop being hit, which it never would have been, I would have gotten a lot more out of that trade. So I did bank 2.42% for the day, and now my account sits at 4.77%. Okay, so you can see here that this is my FTMO account, and you can see that I have day 6 as well as 4.77% in profit. And you can see what my partials were, what my trade was on Monday. I had a break-even trade, then Tuesday was here, and then my first trade on the sell was actually a break-even trade as well. And then I closed out that second position that I never really clicked on. So that 1% was a small little profit. And then I had 4 partials for that last trade. So I felt like I traded pretty effectively today. This is definitely one that I'm going to be back testing, because it's a day that I wasn't expecting so much volatility. I wasn't expecting so much range. And it's actually a really great example that it doesn't always have to be a small range day if there's no news drivers. So all in all, that could have been a 7.1% trade, and it would have taken a little over 2 hours to get to the top here. So we have a daily fair value gap here in this light blue, and so it got to the top of that. It also closed some of this open range gap that was left unfilled, and so it did come up to over 150% of the standard deviation of that swing right there. I'm still pretty happy with the profits. You can't shirk 4.77%, and so that's what I'm going to go into next week with. So if you want to continue to follow me on day 7 and beyond and see if I actually make the profit target by day 10, then make sure that you subscribe below and follow my journey. I'm going to share more trades like this. I am going to go into next week just with a neutral mindset like I have been, and just wait for price action to show me where it wants to go. All right, my friends, have a great week, be safe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next trade. See you soon. Bye.